After I gave birth, my drunk husband beat me unconscious in the hospital and pretended I had fallen down the stairs, but the fool went pale when the doctor. The first time Emma felt her daughter move inside her womb, Ryan screamed that the baby wasn't his. She was barely 22 years old, 8 months pregnant, with broken dreams stuffed in a plastic bag alongside borrowed clothes. She had learned to keep quiet the way one learns to breathe underwater, out of necessity. No one in the neighborhood talked about what happened behind closed curtains. No one mentioned it when screams escaped through the thin walls of their council flat, but everyone knew, and still no one said anything. Emma had stopped expecting miracles, but the day her daughter was born, for an instant she believed they might actually exist. St. Mary's Hospital was one of those understaffed NHS facilities where the smell of disinfectant mixed with desperation. The labor was complicated. She arrived with contractions and no company. Ryan didn't answer his phone all day. He was somewhere in town drinking with his mates, swearing the baby wasn't his, betting with crumpled notes, and laughing while his woman was splitting in two to bring life into the world. Margaret, the midwife on duty, a sturdy woman with kind eyes, held her hand during the final pushes. "Come on, love, push for her." "Not for him, for her," she said with tears in her eyes, and then Emma heard it. A small cry, fragile but alive. "Lily," Emma whispered with a broken voice. She didn't have the strength to cry, she could only look. The baby was tiny, red, and wrinkled, but perfect. A nurse placed her in Emma's arms, and for a moment everything she had suffered disappeared. She didn't think about the nights she slept in fear, or the times she apologized for things she didn't do. She didn't think about the bruise she still carried under her chest. There was only Lily. "Welcome, my love," she whispered in her ear. "I promise I won't let you down." Hours later, in the shared ward, peace began to crack. The door burst open. Ryan appeared stumbling with a bunch of wilted flowers in his hand, and a look that promised no love. Sweat and alcohol clung to his skin like cheap cologne. Even in her hospital gown, Emma knew something was wrong. "Look who decided to give birth without telling me," he said, slamming the door shut. "I called," she replied with a weak voice. "Several times. You didn't answer." "Oh, and I'm supposed to be glued to my phone all day? Or were you in such a hurry to get rid of your guilt?" Emma looked at him in silence. She knew any word was gunpowder. Ryan approached the plastic crib where Lily slept. "Look at her, so peaceful, as if she doesn't know what a disaster you are." Emma stood up slowly, still feeling the burning between her legs, muscles aching from the effort. "Ryan, please, not in front of her." "Really going to give me that? And who's the father, Emma? Because she doesn't look like me." "You're drunk. You have no right to speak to me like that. I just gave birth." Ryan looked at her with a mixture of contempt and rage. He threw the flowers on the chair and got so close that Emma could smell the cheap whiskey on his breath. "Tell me the truth. Tell me you cheated on me. Tell me now. You can't hide it anymore." "I never cheated on you. Lily is your daughter." "Liar." The shout echoed off the walls. A nurse in the corridor paused for a second, but then kept walking. They were used to it. Domestic disputes in the hospital were common, and mostly ended in silence. "Ryan, please, you're scaring me. Like you scared me when you disappeared for 2 days without telling me anything. Like you make me look like an idiot in front of everyone. I left because you kicked my belly. You've already forgotten that." Ryan's hand flew without warning. The blow hit her cheek, making Emma fall against the wall. The baby cried. Emma's heart broke. "And shut her up, I can't stand her crying." Emma tried to get up. The pain was unbearable. Ryan pushed her again, this time against the bed. Emma screamed, but no one entered. "You're a slag," he yelled. "You've ruined my life." Then came the hardest blow. The one you don't hear, but feel. Emma's head hit the floor, and everything went black. Ryan looked at her for a moment. She was breathing poorly, but breathing. He panicked, checked the corridor, no one there. Then he dragged her by the arm with clumsy, desperate effort to the corridor. He left her by the emergency stairs. He ran down, then up, feigning cries for help. "Help!" She fell down the stairs. "Please!" The staff ran. Dr. Francis recognized her instantly. "Emma, my God, bring a stretcher." Ryan burst into tears. One of those fake cries that convince those who want to believe. "I just went to get coffee and found her like this," he said through sobs. The stretcher arrived. They lifted her carefully. A paramedic felt her neck. "She's alive." They took her to the observation room. Ryan stayed at the door with his head down, playing his part. Everyone believed him. Except one. From his office, Dr. Samuel watched his laptop screen. The security camera he had installed for safety reasons in the maternity ward had just recorded something that left him speechless. He saw Ryan entering the room. He saw the argument, the first blow, the desperation. He saw him beat her, and then the most brutal part, how he dragged her by the arm to simulate a fall. The doctor sat in silence, closed the laptop, took a deep breath. He was the duty manager, he had to act, but something inside him said it wasn't time yet. Impulsiveness could ruin everything. Samuel wasn't just any doctor. Years ago, his own sister had died because of a violent husband. He had arrived too late to save her. Since then, every case of violence affected him more than his white coat could disguise. He called Nurse Sarah. "I want you to watch the man who's with patient Emma Wilson. Don't take your eyes off him. I suspect something. I know something, but no one else will know yet." That night Ryan returned to Emma's room. He held his daughter's hand as she slept, oblivious to the hell around her. He spoke to her in a low voice. "You're not to blame, but you'll pay the consequences because you're not mine." And then he caressed her with false tenderness, the same he used to deceive, the same he used to manipulate. He closed his eyes, smiled, and swore no one would discover him. Meanwhile, in the observation room, Emma began to move her fingers. A tear fell from her closed eye. Her body was broken, but her mother's instinct never faded. That night darkness seemed to have control, but Lily kept breathing and Emma, though broken, was still alive. And where there's life, there are possibilities, even in the shadows, even when it seems impossible. Emma woke with a sharp pain in her head, as if someone were opening her skull from inside. She tried to move, but her body felt like she'd been run over. The white ceiling light burned her eyes. She didn't know where she was. "Where's my daughter?" she whispered with a hoarse voice. A sweet-faced nurse approached and gently stroked her arm. "Easy, you're in observation. Your baby is fine. She's being cared for. You just had an accident. You fell down the stairs." Emma frowned. Stairs. She had gone downstairs. She didn't remember. Just a gray void and an unpleasant feeling that made her skin crawl. "Accident?" she asked with effort. The nurse nodded with one of those kind smiles used by people accustomed to seeing tragedies every day. "Your husband found you. He's outside, very worried." Emma closed her eyes. A blurry image crossed her mind. Ryan's voice, a falling flower, Lily's cry, but she couldn't connect at all. Her heart skipped a beat. "Can you tell him I need to rest a bit more?" she whispered. "Please." "Of course," the nurse replied and left. In the waiting room, Ryan paced back and forth. When the nurse came out, he approached with a forced smile. "Is she awake?" "Yes, she's weak but lucid. She'd prefer to rest before receiving visitors." Ryan clenched his fists but kept smiling. "Of course, whatever she needs. I'm here to support her in everything." Sarah, another nurse on duty, watched the scene from the end of the corridor. Something about Ryan's posture seemed familiar. That way of smiling without joy, that control disguised as tenderness. She had seen it before. Many times. Hours later, Dr. Samuel entered the hospital administration office. He locked the door and opened his personal computer. He played the video again. He had saved it on an external drive as a precaution. Every second of the attack was there. Ryan hitting, Emma falling. The dragging, the simulation. He rested his elbows on the desk and covered his face with his hands. "What are you waiting for?" he asked himself quietly. For him to kill her? The fear of intervening before the right moment tormented him. He knew how the systems worked. If he went straight to the police without legal backup, he could lose the case. If the recording was leaked before a formal complaint, it would be dismissed as evidence. He had to wait, but time was a luxury Emma didn't have. That same day, Sarah entered Emma's room to change her for. She looked at her carefully. The black eye, the mark on her cheek, the split lip, but the most serious thing was what couldn't be seen. "Does your head hurt?" "A lot." "Do you have nausea, disorientation?" "A little. And I can't sleep. I feel strange." Sarah hesitated for a moment, then sat on the edge of the bed. "Emma, do you remember how you fell?" "Not really, I just woke up here. They told me it was an accident." "Have similar things happen to you at home?" "Falls, blows, bruises." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "It's not what it seems." "How is it then?" Emma swallowed. "Sometimes I provoke him, I get angry, we argue. He works a lot, he's stressed. When he drinks he loses control, but he's not bad. He has a good heart." Sarah felt a knot in her throat. "What happened to you wasn't your fault. No one deserves to be hit. Whatever state you're in, whatever you've said, love doesn't hurt." Emma looked away. "If I make a scene, I lose everything. He can take the baby. I don't have anyone. I'm here and Dr. Samuel too. He wants to help you. Emma looked at her confused. Why would he do that? Because there are people who don't forget what's right, and you need justice. At that moment, Ryan appeared in the doorway. He carried a box of food and another fake smile. Annoyed, Sarah stood up. I was just finishing. Thanks for taking care of my wife, but I'm here now. You can go. I don't take orders from you, she replied with unusual coldness. I'm just doing my job. Well, do it properly. Don't bother my wife with questions that aren't relevant. Sarah left without saying more. Emma looked down. Did you bring something to eat? Ryan approached and stroked her hair. Of course, love. I brought your favorite. Roast chicken. I'll heat it up if you want. And Lily is fine, sleeping like an angel, but you need to rest more. I don't want you getting agitated. I'm fine, she lied. I don't think so. You're pale. Better not get up much. Don't talk to just anyone. Doctors scare people for nothing. They exaggerate everything. Emma nodded half-heartedly. That night, Samuel took advantage of a moment when Ryan went out to smoke to enter the room. How do you feel, Emma? Sore, confused. It's normal after a fall, but it's also normal to feel afraid when you don't know who to trust. She looked at him cautiously. What do you mean? That there are wounds you can't see and truths that take time to come out. What I believe doesn't matter. What matters is what you remember and what you're willing to face. If I'm wrong, then I'll be here to support you. But if you're not wrong, then I'm here to help you. Emma broke down crying. I feel so alone. You're not. Outside, Ryan was watching through the crack in the door, his teeth clenched, fists closed, venom rising up his throat. The next day, Samuel reviewed Ryan's medical history in the public complaints database. He found a closed file from 3 years ago. Domestic violence complaint. The woman didn't show up for the second hearing. Case archived. No follow-up. He saved a copy of the file. He intended to use it. That same morning, Sarah wrote a detailed medical report on Emma's injuries, indicating they didn't correspond to a simple fall. She took the report to Samuel's office. Here's what you asked for. But if we put this in the system, he'll find out. Not yet. Just leave it with me. Are we going to report or keep waiting? I'm waiting for the moment when she says what she remembers. And if she never says it, she'll end up dead. Samuel nodded. He knew. Hours later, Ryan asked Emma to sign a document. She looked at it suspiciously. What's this? Authorization to be able to take the baby home if needed. Just in case, you know how the system is. Sometimes they don't allow her to leave with just one parent if it's not signed. Why now? Because I don't want problems. And you're weak. You won't be able to take care of her alone. Emma hesitated. Just sign it, Emma. I'm sick of you questioning everything. She signed, and that signature would be the first step toward the abyss. Meanwhile, Sarah and Samuel planned their next move. They couldn't report yet, but they could protect her. Samuel sent a request to move Emma to another room under medical pretense. It was approved. When Ryan returned from the cafeteria, he found her alone, without Emma or the baby. Where are they? The patient was transferred as a precaution, Samuel said without blinking. Only authorized medical personnel can visit her. Ryan gritted his teeth. And since when do they do that without notifying family? Since there are reasons to protect mothers who are at risk. Ryan understood the message. He said no more. He left but didn't give up. That night, Emma slept for the first time in days. Lily was in her arms. Samuel had given the order not to allow anyone visits without his authorization. Finally, Emma felt someone was listening to her. Still, the fear hadn't gone away. She slept with one eye open because she knew people like Ryan didn't accept no for an answer, and because lies don't heal wounds with 4 drips, only with truth. And she wasn't ready to tell it yet, but something inside her was beginning to move. It wasn't courage, it was survival. And in her world, that was the closest thing to hope. Emma's fingers still trembled every time she held Lily in her arms. Her body ached, but it wasn't just physical. It was a pain that hid in her chest that wouldn't let her sleep, that squeezed her ribs from inside. She slept little, spoke less, and watched a lot. Every person who approached, every door that opened, reminded her that Ryan was still close, could still hurt her, hadn't finished with her yet. That same day, Dr. Samuel entered the room with a sealed envelope and a more serious expression than usual. Emma noticed immediately. Is something wrong? She asked with a slight tremor in her voice. I need to talk to you. It's about Lily. Emma held the baby tighter, as if she wanted to hide her from the world. What's wrong with her? Her vital signs are stable, but one of the tests detected an irregularity. She has a congenital heart defect. It's not fatal, but it is serious. What does that mean? She whispered almost breathlessly. It means she'll need surgery as soon as possible. I've spoken to cardiology. It can be done here, but it requires supplies the NHS doesn't fully cover. And how much does it cost? Samuel hesitated before answering. About £18,000. Emma felt a dry vertigo, as if the ground were opening beneath her. Poverty, that constant shadow, reminded her that even the right to life had a price. £18,000. She didn't have £18. I'm going to find a way. I don't know how, but I can help you. There are foundations that cover these expenses. I could even. No, she interrupted with a hard voice. Samuel looked at her bewildered. Why not? I can't accept anything from you or anyone. If I do, Ryan will think I'm selling myself. He'll say I'm sleeping with you. He'll take my daughter. He would do it. Emma looked at him with moist eyes. And he'd do worse things. Samuel remained silent, pressed his lips together, and nodded slowly. He couldn't pressure her. Not yet. Meanwhile, Ryan already knew about the diagnosis. He had overheard it through a stolen conversation, hidden behind a curtain. He didn't seem affected. On the contrary, that night he entered the room when Emma was sleeping with the baby in her arms. He woke her with a kiss on the forehead. You look so peaceful, he said quietly. As if you hadn't destroyed everything. Emma looked at him with fear. What do you mean? £18,000. That's what it costs to fix what you did, because this isn't normal. A sick baby isn't just born like that. This is punishment. And do you know why? Don't say that, she murmured. And why not? Isn't it that this girl's heart reflects yours? Broken, full of lies. She's not to blame for anything, but you are, and you'll pay for every tear I've shed because of you. He stood up, walked to the empty crib, and put a hand on it. Maybe it's better if I take her far away, where you won't be there to fill her with your sick ideas, where no one looks at her with pity. Emma sat up with effort. You're not going to touch her. She's mine. Yours. Are you sure? As sure as you were when you told me you loved me and then ran away. I left because I was afraid. You are fear, Emma. You generate it, so you ruin everything you touch. He left without saying more. Emma felt her throat fill with fire, but she didn't scream. She just hugged her daughter tightly, as if she could protect her with her body, with her bones, with her scars. Sarah found her crying an hour later. She entered silently, left the breakfast tray, and sat beside her. What did he do to you this time? He threatened to take my daughter. Do you have proof? Emma shook her head. He does everything carefully. Never when there are witnesses. He knows how to move. It's as if he's rehearsed every word. Because he has. This type of man does it with many women. They isolate you, nullify you, make you doubt yourself, and when there's nothing left of you, they tell you that without them you're worthless. Emma looked at her. You too? Yes, me too. Sarah took a small folded photo from her pocket. In it, a young woman of no more than 20 with her face marked by a blow. That was me 12 years ago. And how did you get out? One day I told myself, either I get out or I get out in a black bag. The words floated in the air like blades. Emma squeezed her eyes shut. An idea was growing in her mind. It wasn't courage yet. It was another form of fear, a fear that pushes forward. That same afternoon, an elderly figure slipped in among the visitors. She walked with difficulty, but her eyes were livelier than any young person's. Mrs. Joan, Emma's neighbor, had asked a nurse to let her see Emma for 5 minutes. She carried an envelope in her hand and a face full of urgency. Dear, take this, she said, handing her the envelope without preamble. What is it, a letter? You wrote it. You left it with me before you went to the hospital. You said if anything happened to you, I should give it to someone trustworthy, but I didn't know who until now. Emma opened the envelope with trembling hands. It was her handwriting. She recognized every curve, every insecure stroke. The letter was brief but devastating. It spoke of fear, of blows, of threats. It said that if something went wrong, Ryan was to blame. She read it twice, then put it in the drawer. Thank you. Don't let it pass, child. Life is only one, and you have a baby now. It's not just your life at stake anymore. Emma nodded but said nothing. That night, Samuel left a recorder hidden in the office where he usually received Ryan. He knew he'd make him come. He just needed him to talk. Hours later, Ryan entered with his sympathetic tone, hypocritical smile, and soft voice. Doctor, I wanted to talk to you about the baby. I know she has a complicated condition, and I wanted to know if I can take her out of the hospital. For safety, this environment isn't healthy. The baby needs specialized care. She can't leave without medical authorization. Emma already signed a document. Even so, it can't be done. Ryan approached the desk. You seem like an intelligent man and you know how this is. Women get upset after childbirth. They make things up, imagine things that didn't happen, and then accuse without reason. Accuse of what? Things that didn't happen. Blows, screams. You know, it's easier to blame a man than admit they're unbalanced. Samuel looked at him steadily. Are you sure about what you're saying? What I'm sure of is that I won't let that girl grow up next to a mother who's not right in the head. And if I have to take her out of here by force, I will. The recorder kept running. That same night, Samuel and Sarah met in his office. I have him recorded. I heard him say he's going to take the baby without consent. Are you going to report? Not yet. I need Emma to take the step. If she doesn't, then I will. Even if I lose my job, even if the system crushes me, but I won't stand by with my arms crossed. Meanwhile, Emma hugged Lily. The baby slept with difficulty. Her breathing was short, forced, her small heart tired. Life hung by a thread, not just the baby's, but her mother's too. And though the wound didn't bleed on the outside, inside it was festering truths that were about to come out, because even fear has a limit. And Emma's was close to breaking. Days in the hospital didn't pass, they dragged. The cold corridor lights knew nothing of the sun, and the smell of fluid mixed with exhaustion seemed to stick to the skin. Emma barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ryan's shadow approaching. She felt him breathing on her neck, even when he wasn't in the room. She had learned to recognize the sound of his footsteps, his soft tone just before exploding. That way his voice dragged until it became a threat. And suddenly the memories began to return. Not complete images, fragments like broken glass on a table. A phrase said with venom. I told you she wasn't mine. That was before the blow. She remembered it more clearly than anything else. That rabid look, that phrase. Then the violence, then the floor. One day before the hospital evaluated whether Lily was fit to enter the surgery list, Emma began to tremble. Not from fever, it was another kind of chill, one born in the soul. She couldn't breathe well. It wasn't pressure, it wasn't weakness, it was pure fear. Sarah entered with a new dose of painkillers. She noticed Emma's pale face and sat down without saying anything. I remember, she said without looking. I remember what he did to me. Sarah didn't react, just waited. I was in bed holding Lily and he started saying she wasn't his, that I had betrayed him. I tried to calm him down. I asked him not to shout. I asked him not to wake the others. And then he hit me. So fast, as if he hated me, as if he had never loved me. And after that, I fainted and woke up on the floor, but I didn't fall. He dragged me to the stairs. I know it. I feel it in my bones. Sarah took her hand. You don't have to be quiet anymore. Emma closed her eyes. A tear ran down her cheek, but she didn't cry. She was too broken for that. I want to protect my daughter. That's all. You will. You're not alone. Ryan didn't know yet that Emma was starting to remember, but his sixth sense made him uneasy. She no longer looked at him the same way. She no longer responded with the submission she had before. There was an emptiness in her gaze that frightened him, and men like him become more dangerous when afraid. He entered the room with a plastic bag and an empty smile. I brought clothes. I thought you'd like to have something of yours while you're here. You know, something that smells like home. Emma looked at him without saying a word. I also bought diapers and wipes for Lily. Oh, and I signed some papers they asked for at reception. Everything's ready in case they discharge us. Who told you they're going to discharge us? It's a matter of time, isn't it? The baby needs an operation. Yes, I know, but you and I could leave first. At home you'll be calmer. This place is making you sick in the head. I'm fine here. You don't seem like it. He approached and left the bag on the chair. Then he leaned over the crib. She looks beautiful today. Seems like there's nothing wrong with her. She's just surrounded by sick people who don't know how to raise children. Emma sat up with effort. You're not taking her out of here. Oh no, Ryan replied with a crooked smile. And who's going to stop me? You, with what strength? She didn't respond, she couldn't, but her eyes said more than 1,000 screams, and he noticed it. Something had changed. He left the room without saying goodbye. He walked through the corridors as if he knew where he was going. He stopped by the emergency exit. He pretended to check his phone. Then he went down to the underground parking garage. It was dark. Only the hum of fluorescent lights and the echo of his footsteps filled the environment. He took out his car key and opened the trunk. It was empty. He placed a blanket, a baby bottle, an empty plastic bag. He breathed deeply. That was the plan. He would go at dawn. He would enter while they slept. He would take the baby. He would cover her and say it was a medical emergency. No one would suspect. He was the father. He had the paper signed by Emma. That was his wild card. He didn't imagine that Samuel was already following him. From his office, the doctor had reviewed the access route to the parking garage, noticing that Ryan went down frequently, without apparent reason. That was an alert. He didn't tell Emma anything nor Sarah. But he kept the recordings. That same night, he left his car ready in case he needed to follow him. He knew something was going to happen. He could feel it like someone smells smoke before the fire. At 2 a.m., Ryan returned to the hospital, not through the main entrance but through the service door. He wore a black jacket, a cap, and the empty bag. He went up to the room where Lily was sleeping. Emma was deeply asleep, or at least that's how it seemed. He entered slowly. The baby slept peacefully, wrapped in a light blue blanket. Ryan approached, looked at Emma, leaned over the crib, extended his arms, took her, and just when he was about to cover her with the blanket, a voice was heard behind him. "What are you doing?" It was Samuel. Ryan turned with the baby in his arms. "It's none of your business. I'm the father." She signed the papers. At 2 a.m. without notifying nursing? That's how you take your daughter out. She's my daughter. I don't have to ask your permission. And I'm the responsible doctor. And I say that baby can't leave without surgical authorization. It's law, it's ethics, it's common sense. Ryan looked around. No one else. He breathed deeply. I don't want problems, I'm just going to take her. She'll be better without this toxic environment. You are the toxic environment. Samuel took a step forward. Give her to me. No. Then I'll call security. With what proof? With this. Samuel lifted his phone. He had been recording since he entered. Ryan clenched his jaw. His eyes moved quickly. He didn't know whether to run, scream, or hit. In a moment of tension, Sarah appeared from behind. And I already called the police. Everything's recorded. Ryan put the baby in the crib, took 2 steps back. His heart was beating with fury. He turned around, ran to the door, went down the stairs. Samuel and Sarah followed him, but couldn't catch up. The back gate was open. Ryan disappeared into the night. The next day, hospital staff found the wallet Ryan had dropped in his haste. They searched it to identify him. Among his belongings was something more than his ID. A photo. Old format. Polaroid. A baby. Another one. Another face, another woman. Sarah recognized it. She had been in neonatology. A mother who reported her partner for attempted kidnapping of her son. Case closed for lack of evidence. Emma, seeing the photo, went into shock. Her memory began to rearrange pieces. The lies, the screams, the threats before childbirth. She finally understood that Lily wasn't the first victim, that she had been on the edge of the abyss without knowing it. She locked herself in the hospital bathroom and screamed. Not from physical pain, from terror, from betrayal, from feeling so close to losing her daughter. Sarah found her minutes later trembling, sitting on the floor. We saved you, but this isn't over. What if he comes back? We won't let him in. I'm not talking about the hospital. I'm talking about my life, my mind, my nights. Sarah knelt in front of her. We're going to fight, and this time you won't do it alone. That dawn, Samuel took the recording to the hospital management, exposed the facts, presented the documents, showed the photo. At the same time, he reported the attempted kidnapping to the police. For the first time, Ryan would be legally sought. He was no longer just a violent husband. He was a fugitive with a record. And while the storm was approaching, Lily slept peacefully, as if her fragile heart knew that finally someone was fighting for her. Emma's fear no longer prevented her from moving. Now it gave her direction. The wound was still open, but she was no longer alone. And that, in her world, was the closest thing to courage. There was something new in her eyes. It wasn't security, it wasn't anger. It was a deeper, rawer mixture, as if she had finally accepted that her life was made of ruins, but that she could still build something on top, something different, something worthwhile. Lily kept breathing with difficulty. Each inhalation was an urgent warning. Emma no longer had time to lie to herself. She could no longer cover for Ryan with excuses or protect his image before the world. He had tried to take her daughter, and that, more than any blow, more than any humiliating word, was the line that made him an enemy. She woke with swollen eyes, not from sleep, but from the contained crying that had choked her during the night. Samuel entered the room with the laptop in his hands. He carried the recording he had made the night before, the one in which Ryan tried to kidnap the baby. Emma looked at him in silence. Samuel closed the door, sat in front of her, and placed the laptop on her legs. I want to show you something, but first you need to take a deep breath. What is it? The truth without filters. She nodded. Samuel opened the video. The image was clear. The corridor, the room. Ryan entering, taking Lily in his arms. The conversation, the tension, the threat. Then his flight, every second recorded, every lie exposed. Emma covered her mouth with her hands. Crying shook her like a spasm. She couldn't stop looking. Every word from Ryan was a dagger. Every movement, an old wound bleeding again. When the video ended, she let out a long, heartbreaking scream. He was going to take my daughter from me. He was going to take her, she said, sobbing. I loved him. I defended him so many times, and he was going to take my daughter from me. Samuel stood up and hugged her. For the first time, Emma didn't resist contact. She cried on his shoulder. She screamed like a child, like a mother, like a broken woman. You're not crazy, you're not exaggerating, you're not alone. And most importantly, it wasn't your fault. Hours later, Emma asked to speak with someone from the hospital's legal department. She wanted to know how she could file a complaint. She didn't know where to start. She could barely write without her hands shaking. Samuel introduced her to Rebecca, a pro bono lawyer who worked with women victims of violence. She had a sharp face, firm eyes, and a voice clear as a gunshot. I've been told you want to file a complaint against Ryan. Yes, but I'm afraid that because of everything that's happened, they'll take my daughter away. That they'll say I'm not mentally stable, that I can't take care of her alone. Rebecca observed her carefully. Has any doctor said you have a mental condition? No. Have you had any crisis that puts your daughter at risk? Never. Quite the opposite. Then listen to me carefully. There's nothing about you that justifies taking your daughter away. You're alive, you're lucid, you're fighting. The only thing you have is a history of abuse. And that's not madness, that's survival. Emma felt a knot in her throat. For the first time, someone was saying it firmly, as if it were true. And if the hospital doesn't support me? What if they cover everything up? Then we'll make it public. Social media can be more powerful than courts. If I expose myself, you're already exposed, but this time you won't be naked. You'll be armed with the truth. Samuel, hearing this, went directly to hospital administration with Sarah's clinical report, Emma's letter, the audio recording, and the video. He demanded that an internal investigation be initiated and that Ryan's entry be prevented under any circumstances. The hospital director, a cold and calculating man, listened carefully but didn't seem surprised. I understand your concern, Samuel, but if we leak this to the media, the scandal will be brutal. We already have enough discredit from budget cuts. We can't allow a public complaint right now. Are you telling me you're not going to do anything? I'm saying the protocol is long and the timing isn't on our side. Samuel left the office without saying more. He wasn't going to wait. That same night, Sarah organized a clandestine press conference in an empty hospital room. She contacted an independent journalist who had a channel with thousands of followers on social media. She gave her the video, the audio, Emma's letter, and a recorded interview of Emma telling her story with her face covered. I'm not interested in being famous, Emma said in the video. I just want this not to happen to another woman, another mother, another girl. The material was uploaded that same dawn and exploded. In less than 6 hours, the video had hundreds of thousands of views. The phrase, "I didn't fall, he pushed me," became trending. On television, on radio, on social media walls, women told their stories. Some recognized Ryan. Others said they had seen him in other hospitals lurking, asking about newborn babies. Emma's face didn't appear, but her voice, her pain, her story were everywhere. The entire country reacted. The Ministry of Health demanded explanations from the hospital. The gender prosecutor opened an official case. Police issued a national search warrant. Ryan became a fugitive. Emma hadn't planned it this way. She hadn't wanted to become a symbol. She just wanted to save her daughter. But there was no turning back. Samuel entered her room with his phone in hand. "Look at this," he said. Emma took the phone. It was a video of a demonstration at the hospital entrance. Women with signs, with purple scarves, with phrases written by hand. For Emma, for those who couldn't speak. "I do believe you." Emma felt pressure in her chest. It wasn't fear, it was something else. As if the open wound was beginning to close from the inside. "And this is real?" she asked quietly. "As real as you are. You're not alone, Emma, and you never will be again." Sarah entered the room with a contained smile. "There's a foundation that wants to cover the costs of Lily's surgery. They've already transferred the money to the hospital." Emma covered her mouth with her hands. For the first time, her tears weren't from pain. "Why are so many people helping me?" "Because they heard you," Sarah replied. "And because you said what many never could. That night Emma sat on the edge of the bed, took her sleeping daughter's hand and kissed it. "We're going to live, my love. Both of us. We're going to live." The room was silent, but she no longer felt the emptiness. She was surrounded, not by walls or doctors, but by an invisible network made of women, of voices of truth. And under all that pain, finally there was justice beginning to take shape. Not in the courts yet, but in the hearts of those who had heard her. And that justice, though late, hurt less than silence. The entire country already knew Emma's name, though they didn't know her face. In every corner where a woman had once been beaten and couldn't speak, her story served as an echo. Her phrases had been shared in schools, churches, public offices. The hashtag I didn't fall became a digital banner, but while social media burned with support, real justice remained slow, like an old animal that doesn't move without external pressure. Until it happened. A patrol in Yorkshire intercepted a man traveling alone on a bus heading to Dover. He showed false documents. He had an accent that didn't match the name on the ID and the nervous attitude of someone who no longer had an escape route. When officers detained him and took his fingerprints, the system flagged. Ryan Matthews. Active arrest warrant for aggravated domestic violence. Attempted child abduction. National media complaint. His photo had already appeared on news programs, but he kept denying everything. "That's not me," he said, handcuffed with an empty gaze. "You're confused." The evidence was too clear. He was transferred to London under arrest. There, Emma was notified. Rebecca, the lawyer who had become her anchor, explained the process. There would be a trial. He would be summoned to a public hearing. She would have to testify and couldn't avoid looking Ryan in the eyes. "Are you afraid?" Rebecca asked her days before the hearing. Emma looked at her from the hospital chair with Lily sleeping in her arms. "I'm not afraid of him. I'm afraid of remembering who I was while I was with him. That's also justice. Looking back without getting trapped." Samuel was present every step of the process. He was a key witness. He handed over the recording. He detailed how he confronted Ryan in the hospital, narrated with precision every threat, every movement. Sarah also testified. Her medical report was irrefutable proof that Emma didn't fall by accident. The day of the trial arrived. The courtroom was packed. Media outside, women activists at the entrance with scarves. Some men who had witnessed in silence how violence destroys from within. Emma entered with her head high, though inside she felt like dust. She wore a simple dress, hair pulled back, no makeup, like a real woman, like a wounded mother, but standing. Ryan was escorted by 2 officers. He wore prison clothes, no expression on his face. When he saw Emma, the smile he used to manipulate returned. "You came. I knew you couldn't live without me," he said barely audibly. Emma didn't respond, didn't give him the satisfaction. Not this time. The judge began. Lawyers presented their arguments. The prosecution was forceful. They presented the videos, the letter written before birth, medical reports, archived records of aggression against another woman. Rebecca was in charge of showing not only the attempted kidnapping, but the constant pattern of emotional, psychological, and physical violence. When Ryan's turn came, his strategy was expected. He pretended to be a victim of a system persecuting him. "I loved her, Your Honor. I was drunk, yes, but I never meant to hurt her. It was an accident. She lost her balance. I just wanted to help her. It was she who refused to come home, who started making things up. I'm not a criminal. I'm a man who was destroyed by a viral lie." Murmurs in the room grew. The judge asked for silence. Then came Emma's turn. She stood in front of the stand. Her voice trembled, but not her eyes. "For years I lived convinced I deserved every blow. I had been told that love endures, that men explode but then apologize. I thought I was crazy, that if I spoke no one would believe me, but I didn't fall. It wasn't an accident. You pushed me, Ryan. You hit me while I held our daughter in my arms. You left me unconscious, and then pretended it was my fault. And when I woke up, you still had the nerve to call me a liar." She stopped. Breathed deeply. "My daughter won't grow up thinking that's love. I won't allow the cycle to repeat. Today I speak for myself, but also for all those who couldn't reach this stand. I survived, but that doesn't make me special, it makes me responsible." The silence was total. Ryan gritted his teeth. He knew he had lost. There was no more room for lies. The judge spoke. He read the sentence in a firm voice. "Ryan Matthews, for the crimes of aggravated domestic violence, attempted child abduction, and qualified assault, this court sentences you to 12 years imprisonment." A murmur of relief ran through the room. Emma didn't smile, she just lowered her head and closed her eyes. Not from sadness, it was something else, a liberation without joy, but necessary. Outside, the media waited for everything. Emma didn't speak. Rebecca offered a brief statement. Today justice took a step, but there's still much to be done. Emma isn't an exception, she's one among thousands. What changed is that this time everyone looked. Meanwhile, the hospital also received sanctions. The ethics committee suspended 2 directors for negligence. They ordered a review of protocols for violence victims and implemented a mandatory training program for all staff. Samuel was invited to give the inaugural talk. He refused, only saying, "The day we need fewer protocols and more humanity will have advanced." Sarah, on the other hand, was publicly recognized, not by the system but by patients. Anonymous women left notes, flowers, thank yous in the corridor where she used to work. Emma returned to the hospital, this time not as a victim, but as a mother ready to face the next battle. Lily would be operated on that same week. The money was there. The medical team too. It was a complex surgery, but with good chances. Emma held her daughter's hand while they prepared her. "I promised I would protect you, and I will. Today, tomorrow, always." The little one breathed peacefully, as if she knew that although her heart was weak, her mother's no longer broke with the wind. Samuel watched from the doorway. He didn't say anything, just nodded and left. He knew his role had ended. Emma no longer needed saviors. She had learned to save herself. And when the sun came out, it hit her face. For the first time in a long time, it seemed the light no longer hurt. Emma closed her eyes for a moment. Breathed deeply. She felt warmth filtering through her skin, as if life itself were asking permission to enter again. The air was different. The world hadn't transformed, but she had. And that was enough. Inside the hospital, Lily slept with a tiny tube in her nose and miniature wires attached to her chest. She was ready for the surgery that would decide her fate. The room was full of blinking devices, beeping monitors, and a silence that felt heavier than any scream. Emma didn't move from her side. Every minute seemed like a sentence. She repeated the words she had learned through so much pain. Hold on, breathe, resist. She said them to herself, but also to her daughter, as if from her chest she could transfer something stronger than blood. The will to stay, to fight, to live. The surgery was scheduled for 8 a.m. At 7:30, Samuel entered with a folder in his hand. His face was calm, but his eyes couldn't lie. He had spent nights reviewing every step of the procedure with the surgeons, making sure nothing was left to chance. Emma stood up from the chair without letting go of her daughter's little hand. "Everything ready?" Samuel nodded. "Excellent team. You're in good hands. If it doesn't go well, it will." She looked down. A tear escaped. "I'm so afraid." Samuel sat beside her. "Can I tell you something I've never said?" Emma looked at him with her face wet. "My sister was also afraid. She was younger than me. She believed the man who loved her would change, that his screams were just from stress, that his blows were moments. She never reported. One day they found her dead in the bathroom with her skull cracked. They said it was a fall. He left the country before he could be tried. The silence became denser. "I couldn't save her," Samuel continued. "She was my sister, and I didn't know how to see in time what was happening. That's why, when I saw you arrive here, I knew I couldn't make the same mistake." Emma squeezed his hand. For the first time she understood that pain wasn't exclusive, that wounds, though different, connect us. "Thank you for not giving up on me," she whispered. "Even though I gave up on myself many times." "You didn't give up, you just got lost for a while, but you came back." At 8 o'clock sharp, a group of doctors entered the room. One of them, the surgeon in charge, approached Emma. "Ready?" Emma swallowed. "I don't have another choice, do I?" "No, but your daughter does, and she's prepared to fight." Emma leaned over Lily, kissed her forehead, and whispered in her ear. "Don't leave me, my love. We haven't lived together enough yet." The baby was taken on the stretcher down the long corridor that led to the operating room. Emma stood alone, watching her most fragile piece disappear through a white door. The next 5 hours were the longest of her life. She sat in the waiting room with her hands intertwined, without looking at the clock. She didn't touch her phone, didn't eat, didn't speak, just breathed. Samuel accompanied her during the first 2 hours, then left her alone. Sometimes silence is more useful than any word. At 12:30 the operating room door opened. The surgeon came out with a sweaty face, gloves hanging from one hand. She walked toward Emma with firm steps. Emma jumped up. "What happened? Is she okay?" The doctor took a second to respond, then smiled. "She's alive." Emma fell to her knees. She couldn't scream. She couldn't speak. She just cried in silence like someone who's been crying inside for centuries. The heart responded well. It was a difficult operation, but she resisted. Your little girl is strong. Hours later, Lily was transferred to a special room. Emma entered accompanied by Sarah. The baby had a peaceful expression, as if she hadn't been between life and death hours before. You did it, Emma whispered. You're so small and so brave. Sarah sat next to her. Now it's your turn. You also have to heal. How do you do that? There's no formula, but talking helps. And there are many women who need to hear you. Emma hesitated. But something inside her no longer wanted to be quiet. 2 weeks later, when Lily was discharged from the hospital, a local media outlet requested an interview with Emma. There were hundreds of messages, petitions, women wanting to know more about her. Rebecca asked if she wanted to do it. She wasn't obligated, but if she did, she had to be prepared to stir everything up again. I'm ready, Emma replied. This time they won't silence me. The interview was recorded in the hospital's empty pediatric room. Emma brought Lily in her arms. She didn't want to hide her. In front of the cameras, she spoke calmly without victimhood. With truth. I'm not a victim. I'm a woman who survived silence. I didn't fall. I didn't slip. I didn't exaggerate. I was pushed, beaten, silenced, manipulated, and for a long time I thought that was love, but it's not. Love doesn't hurt. Love doesn't hide. Love doesn't kill. To the women listening to me, if you're afraid, look for a hand. Sometimes one is enough. And if there's no one, scream, because someone will hear. I did it and I'm here. The video went viral within hours, not as a complaint, but as a declaration of life. A week later, Emma was invited to speak at a cultural center for women survivors of violence. She accepted. She went with Lily in her arms. The room was full. Young women, adults, elderly, all with different stories but similar wounds. Emma stood in front of the microphone and breathed deeply. I don't come to tell a tragedy, I come to share a truth, because everything that's silenced rots, and it rots us from inside. She told everything. The beginning, the hell, the fall, the attempted kidnapping, justice, surgery, survival. When she finished, many were crying. Some stood up to hug her, others just said thank you. An elderly woman of almost 70 told her, I was silent for 40 years. You screamed for me. From the back of the room, Samuel watched. He didn't approach, didn't interrupt her, just saw her standing. Strong mother woman, no longer the same one who arrived at emergency trembling. When she saw him, she just nodded. He did too. Nothing more was needed. Samuel turned and left silently. He had fulfilled his mission. And as he walked toward the street, he thought that maybe for the first time in his life, he had truly saved someone. Lily grew up knowing that her mother had made history without wanting to, that her life was saved thanks to the courage of a woman who spoke when it was most difficult. And in every beat of that small heart that now worked without flaws, lived a reminder that truth, even when it arrives wounded, always has power. Because there are screams that break silence, and there are women who are born twice. Once when they come into the world, and again when they decide never to be quiet again. Asterisk, what did you think of this story? Many people are living similar situations. We hope Emma's voice also lives in you. If this story moved you, share it. Be part of the change. Tell us in the comments what you would have done in a situation like this, where you're watching us from. We'd love to read you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends or family. Each gesture of yours inspires us to keep creating deep and real stories every day. And don't go yet, our next impactful story is about to appear on your screen. You can click on the links you see right now on your screen. They're part of an exclusive selection of captivating stories, specially chosen for you. Thanks for joining us. See you in the next video. Asterisk.